Switching gears now, joining from Washington, D.C. is a former business advisor to George W. Bush, as well as financial analyst Kereakos Zuras. Kereakos, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rick.
All right, getting started here with one of the news that's come out is that it's being said that the future is now brighter for freelance workers, that 83% of executives say their companies are increasing their use of quote-unquote contingent workers. What I read that as, Kereakos, is that companies do not want to take the risk of putting full-time employees on their payroll, so they're hiring independent contractors and pushing the expense of benefits and sick pay and vacation pay on the backs of the worker.
That's exactly right. I see no benefit to this whatsoever. You know, there's a lot of freelance people out there in all types of areas of work, and most of them are not doing very well at all. So as more of this continues, you're exactly right. They'll call you when they need you. You're not going to have any stable work at all, nothing that you can rely on that's going to be consistent. So you could go weeks without work, and then you may be a little bit of work. How can you budget, plan, and do anything when you don't know when your next paycheck's going to come?
That being said, and I agree with you, how can these individuals budget and plan? With Tuesday night's election results, Republicans taking the Senate, of course, growing their control of the House, what may we expect from economic opportunities, from job growth opportunities? Is it too early to tell what it might mean to mainstream America, everyday folk across the country, for their economic well-being?
Well, I think that it's going to be a good thing. Look, right now, I think the Republicans should be sending a bill every week to the Senate for approval, and they're going to start hitting key issues like the Keystone Pipeline that could employ a lot of people, changes to the health care and to the medical device provision in Obamacare. They're going to increase defense spending. That's going to put people to work. They're going to be pushing for that. We're going to be looking at increasing the liquefied natural gas for exports to increase that energy sector, and tax reform, getting rid of the corporate inversion. This is going to mean a lot. This is going to allow businesses to start hiring again, and people are going to get back to work. So I think it's going to be a very, very good thing. And if they keep pushing these bills through, it's going to force President Obama to say no to a lot of good things, and that's not going to be a good thing for him.
All right, you bring up a great point, Kereakos Zuras, in that everyone is waiting for Republicans to show leadership. It's not in the last several years, I sat back and were against President Obama without showing any leadership, and perhaps they weren't in position to, given the numbers with the Democrats in the Senate. Now that they control the Senate, now that they control the House, it's not good enough to just sit back and complain about the president. You've got to show leadership, and this, as you say, the one place where they can show the American people what leadership looks like is send bills up to the Senate, which ought to create jobs. And I like what you just said. The U.S. corporate tax rate is the highest in the developed world. If you send a bill up to Capitol Hill to lower that corporate tax rate, then maybe this idea of 83% of executives saying they're going to hire independent contractors changes to full-time employees.
It would, because they'd have the room to do it. And look, it's not just about the Republicans saying no to Obama or doing nothing. There's over 340 bills that Harry Reid has refused to bring to the Senate floor, and a lot of them have to do with job creation and getting the economy going again. So there's a lot of good things out there. You're going to start to see them, and the president's going to have to be forced to either say, I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it.
That, too, is a very good point that did not get reported widely the last several years, is that Republicans were known as obstructionists according to the mainstream media. Well, Harry Reid has not moved forward on 340 bills. The other news that's significant here, and it may take some time to play out, the Federal Reserve, a Republican-controlled Senate, a Republican-controlled House, is the Federal Reserve's worst nightmare. Why don't you tell our viewers why that's the case and what it means to them sitting at home tonight?
Well, the Federal Reserve has been printing money like crazy for the last 6 years. The stock market has risen from 100% from 2009 to the present And it's all because of the quantitative easing. So the first thing that I think the Republicans are going to do is they're going to, get with the Fed and say, look, you need to slow down. You need to, interest rates needs to come up. We got to stop printing the money. You're also going to see some problems in the stock market. I think that the stock market's going to take a little bit of a hit, maybe a big hit. And we may also be looking at going back into a recession if that occurs. So, it's... all this artificial stimulation has got to stop, and we need to actually let things settle down. And I think the Republicans are going to be pushing towards that, and that's goes totally against what the Fed's doing right now.
You would think the stock market would take a big hit, Kereakos, Zuras, because the market historically is in lockstep. It reflects what's happening in the real world on Main Street. It's an indicator, maybe 6-12 months out, as we all know, but there's a disconnect today. The market, as you point out, Kereakos, has doubled since 2009, but we're not seeing those jobs. We're not seeing those economic prosperity in mainstream America today, so there's a disconnect. So either the economy booms or the market pops like a balloon. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be the latter.
And President Obama's been campaigning and talking about how he wants to help the middle class. All this quantitative easing hasn't helped anybody except the very, very rich who can afford to play the game and buy into the stock market at big levels. That's all that's happening here. So I think we're going to hit a bust. I think the stock market's going to take a big hit. And I think it may push us back into a little bit of recession. And
this printing
of, be interesting to see how that plays out.
And this printing of money, which the Fed does, of course, creates inflation, which is a hidden tax to you and me and our viewers across America. It's an easy tax for politicians because they can vote. They don't have to vote it in and be accountable for it to the voters. They can simply allow the Fed to print more money, and no one sees it as a tax, but it's exactly what it is, a hidden tax. All right, Kereakos Zuras, former business advisor to George W. Bush, financial analyst, thank you for joining us.